we're going to be building Django's authentication from scratch. So with that, so right here, can everyone see that? I've already built out, I'm actually going to back up one. Can everyone still see this, or should I zoom in?
It's fine for me.
That's good.
Okay, cool. All right. So I already built out a Django project as well as 2 Django apps. So I built out a Django project called My Site. We should kind of be already familiar with that My Site challenge. It's My Site and blog. And I built out a, what the hell is this? Oh, so I already messed this up. I'll redo it. Let's go ahead. Let's see. Yeah. Looks like I built out 3 Django projects. So let's go up, start project, start app. So I'm going to build a Django project, which I already did, which is My Site. Then I'm going to build 2 Django apps called blog right there. That's going to just be a blog, which we've done in the past, as well as a user auth app, which handles all our user authentication. So can anybody tell me what is authentication? Has anybody heard the terms like authentication, authorization? And can someone tell me like what is authentication and what is authorization?
Is it sort of like confirming the proper user is accessing the material?
So that would be more so well, yes. I mean, that's kind of like a cover case for both of them, kind of.
Authentication is checking if you're allowed in. Authorization would be more of if you're allowed to do something while you're in.
Yep. So if you think of authentication as authenticating a user, that a user is able to access an application. So when you log into whatever your favorite app is, so username, login, or email, password, click enter, that's authentication. Like, hey, this user is authenticated. All right. Authorization, as Everett said, is what rights you have once you're authenticated. So are you authorized to view this information when you visit this URL, or do you even have access to visit this URL? So authentication, think of like user login. Authorization is whether or not you actually have access to view certain data on the front end and the back end. So what we're going to do today is authentication and authorization, because once you get a user that is authenticated, we want to kind of just show you whether or not you have access to certain specific information. So I created these 2 apps, blog and user auth. So now, and I've already installed Django and all of that. All right. So next thing I want to register the blog app and the user auth app to my installed apps. So I can do blog and user _ auth. I'm gonna add a comma there. All right. And I'm going to use the built-in SQLite database just to keep things simple right now. All right, cool. So in my site, let's just deal with the blog app right now. Let's just try to get at least some of that kind of working. All right, so what I'm going to do is So in my site URLs, my Django project URLs, I'm going to do include, and I'm going to create two paths, one to the blog app that's going to include the blog.urls. And then I'm going to also create just the base routes to the auth app. So user auth URLs. I'm just going to comment that out temporarily just so if we get any errors. All right. Next, I'm going to be in my blog app. So this should be pretty familiar. I'm going to go ahead and create a model for a blog, and it's going to be like a super simple model. So I'm going to do class blog, all right, I'll just do post models dot model, and I'm going to do title models dot char field, max length 255, and then the content, we'll just do a text area. There's a text field. Thank you. I've been working on the front end at work. And I'm just going to use the dunder string method. What am I doing? Return f string self.title. Yeah, just do self.title. So I don't even really need the. Yeah. There we go. So, all right. So any questions about anything with regards to this Django project and apps, the apps I'm building out right now? All right. So in my site, I created the URLs, and I'm looking at the blog URLs. So let's go ahead and build out the blog URLs as well. Probably should have done that first before creating my model, or I should have created my models first. But let's go ahead and build out our blog URLs. I don't need that. And our blog URLs, I want to visit all of them. So if I wanted to view all posts, I can do like views dot all posts, and then name equals all posts. Then I can import from views, or from everything, import views. All right. And next, so I built out my routes. Now I'm going to go and in my blog view, create def. All posts, takes in the request. And then I can do posts, or all posts. I'm going to do just posts. Those posts dot objects dot all. I can do data equals all posts, and then I can return render the request. Some HTML, I'll do blog slash post underscore list dot HTML, and then pass in that data there. And it looks like I'm gonna have to import the models, the post model, models, import post. There we go. All right, so built out my view. Now let's go ahead and build out our templates. So I'm going to create a directory called templates. This all should be review. Create another template called blog. Then inside that blog, or create another directory called blog, and then inside that blog directory, create an all posts.html. Then I can just create some boilerplate. I'm not going to do any Django templates, templating or anything like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and so H1 all posts, and then for post and all posts, go to N4. I'm just going to do paragraph post.title, just so we have something showing up. All right. So we have that route completed. What questions do you have about that process?
Can I see the views folder again?
Yep. The views directory. Look right here.
Okay, yeah, you named the HTML file wrong.
I did post list, all posts. You are correct. Amazing. Post list. Good catch. Cool. All right. The last thing I'm going to add in here is something that gets passed in, and that is a user. So we're going to see what this looks like when we actually go to it. So with every request, we're able to access a user. So the idea of this is we have a blog that shows all posts, whether or not a user is logged in. And then once a user is logged in, they're going to go to a separate route, and it's going to be a protected route. And that just means that only certain people have access to that route. And the only people that are going to have access to that route are logged in users. So right now, this route, everyone's going to be able to access to it. So let's just get this up and running. Python manage.py, we're going to make migrations. All right, and now we're going to migrate. All right, Python manage.py. Actually, let's first register the post model from models, import the post model. So in our admin, import the post model, and then we're going to do admin site register the post model. So I registered that site to the admin panel. Does anybody have a question? No. So now I'm going to make a super user just so I can create some posts real quick. So I'm going to clear Python manage.py, create super user. I'm just going to leave it blank, email.com. 123, 123. Yes. Now I'm going to run the server. I'm going to come over here. Now if I go to localhost admin TA pread 123. So this is where I have access to my users and the posts. So I'm just going to create some posts. This is my first post. Content. Save and add another. Second post. All right. Post. Yep. Save. All right. So now if I go to /blog, you can see all these posts. And notice up here, we have a user. And what is this user?
That's
The
the one. who
admin
created
user
the
that you
post.
created?
So that's the admin user I created, but why does it show up right now?
I'm thinking it's because it's got all the permissions given to it.
So
Is that who created the post?
no, I mean, no, not necessarily.
Oh, then that's who's logged in maybe. Yeah, you're
Yes.
logged in. Welcome to EA Preet.
Yep. So I'm currently logged into the admin dashboard. So if I log out, and now if I go back to blog, now it just says anonymous user. So the reason why TA Preet showed up is because I logged into the admin dashboard and I was in the same like session. Right. So what we're going to want to do is eventually in our blog routes, create another route that's going to be a protected route. So like, I'll just say like protected. And this is going to be go to /protected route. And I'm just calling this protected route just to like be very explicit that this method is going to be a protected route. It's typically not how you do it. I just want to demonstrate that this is going to be a protected route at some point. So I'm going to do def protected route, and I'm not going to actually build this out yet. I'm just going to keep it as is. So I'm not going to build this protected route out yet, because what I want to do is build out my authentication system. So what I just did, I created a Django project, created 2 Django apps. I created the blog app, which is what we should be pretty familiar with. And I created a route. I created a model with a post model that has title and content. It should be pretty simple. I created a URL to view all the posts in the blog. So created an all post route that just go to blog/nothing. And it goes to all posts view method. That grabs all the posts. And then it renders all the posts using through the post _ list HTML template. And in that template, all it does is loop through all the posts and post the title. It also has this little user just so you could, this is just so you can see that what user is currently kind of logged in. And then I'm going to create a protected route to the blog app that only certain authenticated users or only authenticated users will have access to. So that's what the plan is. But now we actually have to go about building out the built-in user authentication system. So with that, I'm going to collapse my blog app and open up the user auth app and build out a user model. So I might have to delete my user model, like existing one. I just wanted to show you this. But when we did the admin panel, we used the built-in user model, but maybe we want to extend that built-in user model and add something else to it. So I believe it was Thursday. So if we wanted to extend the fields on the built-in user model, does anybody remember how we did that? Anybody?
Is that when we did the foreign key with the user auth?
No, that is one way to do it. But I'm gonna do it how I feel, what I'm most comfortable doing it. Does anybody remember what user model we used, what the name of that user model, the built-in user model. Does anyone remember? So typically we inherit from the models model class. But if we're going to be using the built-in user model and extending the built-in user model, or essentially extending it and like relocating, telling Django what user model to look at, we're going to use the abstract user model. So a new class user inherits from the abstract user class. And we want to extend the fields. So instead of just having all the built-in fields that the built-in user model has, we want to add is premium. I think we did this on Thursday as well. Like we added an is premium flag on here so we can tell whether or not a user is a premium or a paid user or not. So this is going to be models dot Boolean field. And the default is false initially. All right. So it looks like we have some errors. And if we ever decide to use the built-in user model, we need to first, or not first, but also rename the abstract user field, or like essentially tell Django project what user model should we look at instead of the base user, the abstract user model. So in the settings file of the project, down at the bottom, you can say auth user model equals the name of the app, which is what is the name of the app? User auth dot user. So that's the user model we're going to be using. And we don't have to call it user. We can call it like blog user or whatever we want. But I'm just going to call it the user model. All right. Questions about that? All right. So with that, let's go ahead and might get some errors. Clear. So I'm going to do Python manage.py, make migrations. So created the user model. I'm going to migrate. Let's see if this works. All right. Auth user initial on database default. So let's go ahead and I'm going to delete the database. I might have to recreate those other ones, but see if there we go. All right, so now it worked. I probably could have deleted that initial database or that user and it might have worked. But let's actually run this, or let's actually, so I created a new base user that added this is premium flag on it or field. So what I'm going to do is register this user model. So from models, import the user, then admin site register the user model. All right. Now let's see if I can create a super user again. Manage.py, create super user. Yep. So I'm going to do, I'll do Tom at email.com, a password, ABC, 1, 2, 3, like so. super user created successfully. All right. So now, let's see if I remember. Python manage.py create, nope, run server. I just want to make sure that everything's still working. So go to admin. So I can use TomTom now. TAP, nope, ABC. There we go. So now you can see we've got our groups, no longer the users there. The users model is in the auth app. So now I can come here and you can see the user, and you can also see the is premium flag right there. And if I go back here, I can go ahead and create posts again because I deleted those. This is where a fixture would be really nice, so I can just see data real quickly. First post. Second post. All right, that's good enough. So now I'm just going to log out and go to blog. And there you go. We've got all posts, and I've got my anonymous user because I logged out. So there's no user that's logged in. All right. Questions on just getting a new user model created and all of that fun stuff. All right. So let's go ahead and actually build out the authentication. So inside of my site URLs, I'm going to go to auth/user auth URLs. So now I'm going to go to auth and go to urls.py. Whoop, that's not where I want that. urls.py. And I'm just going to copy over the blog URLs initially. All right. So for an authentication system or routes, what are some typical authentication routes that we should have? If we want to authenticate a user.
I'm just taking a stab at it, but we want to show them a form so they can enter their credentials.
Okay, so what if you were just to tell me what URL would that usually be if we're gonna
Like login.
perfect login? So we need a page that existing users can go and log in.
I guess they would have to sign up initially,
Sign up,
and then when they're done, they can log out.
log out. Perfect. All right, so we're gonna create 3 routes. We're gonna create sign up, login, and log out. So I'm gonna create a path called we'll just do sign up first. Sign up, you can do sign dash up, sign up, or whatever. I'm just gonna do sign up. So /sign up. I'm gonna do views. I'm gonna call it sign up user name equals sign up user. Sorry about my dogs. They probably see the neighbors' kids playing outside. So we got sign up, or their mom's home. So we got sign up. Whoop. We're gonna do login, and last one we'll do log out. I'm just gonna comment these out right now because I don't want it to give me any errors. So now let's go ahead and create inside of the views. Where am I at? my site auth. So yep. So create our URLs. Now let's go ahead and create our views. So I'm going to split the screen. I'm going to close that out. Actually, we can keep these right here because I'm going to automatically create these def sign up user that takes in the request, pass initially, sign up, log out, and log in. So got sign up, log in user, and a log out user. All right. So when we first go to auth/signup, we can do if the request dot method equals, you can do a post request. So once a user actually signs in, we can tell them to do something. Or if it's a get request, we can do either an else statement, just assume everything else is a get request. Or we can explicitly say like, hey, if request dot method equals a get request, we can also do that as well. I think I've been doing just else statements for this. So if it's not a post request, we're going to assume it's a get request. So when we're dealing with forms or posts or whatever, what do we typically show the user?
A form with a bunch of inputs on it.
Okay, so we're going to have to create a form instance of like whatever we want the user to fill out and display a template with that form instance in there. So I'm going to go to form, and now I'm going to have to create like a user login form or something like that, which I haven't created yet. So what I'm going to have to do is actually create a
Wouldn't
user
that form be better named as sign up?
You are
Because
yes.
you would need to, you'd want to use a login form for the login.
Oh,
page.
yeah, you're correct. Sorry, I was ahead of myself. So this is sign up. So it could also be like create user form or user creation form or sign up form. So let's sign up user. I'm just gonna call it sign up user form. Yep. And then typically we create that instance. We pass that form instance into a template, but we have to create that form first. So I'm going to go over to here and create a form file, form.py file. I'm going to bring that form py file over to the left-hand side and create my form here. So again, Django does a lot of heavy lifting for us. So Django authentication methods backend. I'll just do authentication. All right, so they got a bunch of, so here's like user authentication in Django. They got users, permissions, groups, cool. Advanced testing, 4.0 documentation, working with user objects. Oh, what do I want to do? Authentication, managing users in the customizing users and authentication. User creation. Awesome. So custom users and built-in auth forms. So Django already has built-in forms to handle user authentication. So we have authentication form, set password form, change password form, all these with these forms that I don't really use, but we have the following forms are tied to a user and need to be written or extended to work with a custom user model. So we created, not that model, a custom user model right here. So we can use this custom or user creation form that has 3 fields: username, password, password 2. It verifies password 1 and password 2. So the built-in user creation form is what we're going to want to inherit from, and we're going to create our own custom form. So inside of our form, we're going to go ahead and from Django contrib auth.forms, import the user creation form. And from here, I'm going to import the model that we want to associate this form with, and that is the user model. And we could have called that user model whatever we wanted when we initialized it. So what do we call this? Sign up user form. So class sign up user form inherits from the user creation form. And now we do class meta, what model we want to associate that with. So model, want to use the user model. Then what fields do we want the user to have to fill out? It can be like an email, username. It automatically kind of already has the password attached to it. But we also had that one flag is premium, so we can have a user sign up as a premium user if they wanted to. So
Credit card if they were a premium user.
I'm sorry?
Probably a credit card if they were a premium.
If they had, yeah, if they're a premium user, but our current model doesn't allow it for us to type in credit card. Again, if we wanted to add credit cards, we'd add logic to some external API to handle any credit card information, such as Stripe or Venmo or whatever. So we're not actually storing any credit card information. But let's just say the only things we want the user to have, or the only things we want the user to fill out is their username, and we'll do it is premium. And then the passwords are already going to be there as well. So here's our sign up user form. Let's go ahead and import. So from forms, import sign up user form. Why is that giving me an error? Did I import that somewhere else? Some form. It should be forms.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you're creating a sign up user form in which you want them to be able to input and basically create a username and establishing whether or not this person has a premium account or not. But you said that the password would already exist. How and why?
The password won't exist. The password fields will already automatically be displayed.
And that's coming from the user creation form?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So this user creation form already has certain attributes about it that will automatically be shown by default. But here is what else do we want to show to the user for them to sign up? And we're gonna have the username and a flag that is if they're premium. And we could also add email in there as well if we wanted to, but right now we'll stick with username and is premium.
Okay, thank you.
So, no problem. What does it say? All right. So next, let's go ahead and actually show them this form. So we have that form instance. So we can return, render the request. We can auth user, or is it user auth? I always forget. User auth / sign up.html. And then here we'll do form. And we can also do I think that's good for right now. And we'll tackle login after we take a break. Well, I just want to get this shown right away. So let's go ahead and build out our sign up HTML template. So in here, inside of our auth user app, we're going to create templates, create another called user auth directory, and then create a file inside of there called signup.html. And in here, we can do HTML. Get rid of that. I don't really need any of this stuff. H1. Do sign up. And then we could do the form. The type of method this is going to be. This is going to be a post request once we fill it out and submit it. We're going to need the CSRF token, CSRF token. And we've got that form instance. So we can do form.as_p to actually display the form where all the tags are paragraph tags. And then we'll have the input, which is type submit. So it's going to be a submit button, value, sign up. All right. Let's see if so let's just run that server. Hopefully everything's working correctly. So we're at localhost blog, click enter, we're able to get the blog. We're an anonymous user. We can go to auth/signup. And here we go. This is what that base user creation form kind of inherits. The sign up user form, we're requiring the username and is premium field. So we've got a username, all this, these flags for like minimum requirements are already there by default. You can change that in your user creation form. Here you can like remove some stuff if you wanted to, but we have the is premium. So if I said like Tom2 is premium, and then we can add a password in here as well. ABC. Like so, and then when we click sign up, if we were to click that, it'd be a post request. And then it would come into here and then be inside of here. But we still have to do all that logic. So just a quick recap for our auth user model, or I'm sorry, auth user app, we extended the base user model by inheriting from the abstract user model. We call this user model also user. We could all call it blog user if we wanted to. We added an additional field that is premium because maybe premium users have additional capabilities. Maybe they have access to part of the site that non-premium members have. And then we reassigned the Django project settings where to look for their base user model, their abstract user model, to look at the user model inside of our auth user app. Then we created some routes, login, sign up, login, log out. We haven't finished this out, built that out yet, but we're working on the sign up route there. So we go to sign up user, come here, sign up user. If the request is a post request, we're going to do this, but otherwise it's going to create or return a form called sign up user form. And over here in the forms.py file, we have our sign up user form, which inherits from the user creation form, which is the built-in authentication, create user, built-in Django user form. And then we could add, and these are the fields that we're requiring. We could also add email if we wanted to. So if we did that and did a refresh, you can see we added real quickly, added an email address field there. But we don't need to do that now. So there's our sign up user form, and we're returning that form. We're creating an instance of that form and then returning that form as an object into the sign up user template, which is right there. All right. What questions do you have about that? All right. Board it. All right. Now let's build out this post method. So when a user fills out their username, so like Tom2, I'm going to say Tom2 is premium and fills out username and password. Pretty standard for here. I'm going to create a new sign up user creation form instance, pass in that request dot post. You should be relatively familiar with this with regards to filling out forms in Django. So we're going to say if form dot is valid. We can do form. Typically, we would do commit equals false and then redirect you to like that specific post or that specific comment. But here we don't really need to do that because we're just validating or signing up a user. So form.save, and then we're going to redirect the user to reverse. We're going to have them go to the all posts method. So we need to import redirect, reverse in there, and everything should be looking good so far. So when I go ahead and create a new user, ABC. So hopefully everything worked. If I click sign up, it took me to the all posts. So everything seemed to work, hopefully. And we can come here and look to see if that post request worked. So down here, post auth, sign up, HTTP 302. I don't know if that actually worked. We'll find out. All right. Now we can see if that user worked. If we just go to admin, what is it? What was my user's name? the first user. Uh-oh. Does anybody remember?
Thought it was TA pre.
Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, so that's that first. So TA pre was the original super user, but I deleted them and I created TomTom. I should have just done TA pre, but here's that second user that I created. And you can see that they are premium because I did select that. So yeah. So we're able to create new users. So I can also do auth, sign up. So username, Larry Sellers, ABC. Sign up. Uh-oh, what happened? It returned a none instead. Why did that happen? Maybe fewer digits.
Was it because you had a space?
Yeah, that might
Get
be it.
space in.
Yep, maybe. Okay, yep. Oh, and I guess TomTom was still logged in. So that's why TomTom shows up here, is because TomTom is still logged in. I just want to see if that user. So yeah, cool. So we're still able to create users. Now I can log out. If I go to blog, I get my anonymous user. All right. Now let's go to login. So here we are login. Now, just like we did with the sign up user, we can do if request dot method equals a post request. And these should be single quotes just for keep things the same. Do something else. I can assume it's a GET request. And in here, what do we want to do? Else we want to very similar to the sign up form, but we can say like from form equals login user form, which we're going to have to create. And just like we did up here, all right. But instead of the sign up form, we're going to have the login form. So we're going to have to create a login user form. So if we come over here, we're not going to inherit. So it's, yeah, login user form. So let's actually look at creating custom forms in Django. I don't want that. Working with forms. All right. So here's a form. So here we go. What kind of forms have we been working with the past, 2 weeks? I would say, what kind of forms were we inheriting from typically?
The model forms.
Yep. So we've been usually working with the model form. So inheriting model forms. These are forms specifically linked to a specific model. And that's generally just to create a record of a post, a comments, anything, an event. But here, we're just creating a form to capture user data. We're not storing that data anywhere. So we don't need to inherit from the model forms class. We can just inherit from Django import form. So if we look here, just like we're doing up here, forms. This is just a name form where your name is a char field, etc. So here we're going to inherit from the forms form class, not the model form class. The model form class is, so like the form class is like the most parent level class for forms. I believe there might be something higher, but I believe that's like the highest, the oldest, or the you call it the eldest form class. So it's like form class, and then there's the model form, etc. So what are two fields that we typically need when we're creating a login, or that we need when we're creating a login form?
Username and password.
Yep. So username, we can say forms.char field. So this is going to be a char field, max length. We can have, I don't know, 100. And then the password is also going to be a char field, forms.char field. But here, what do we got? Where's a Django? Where was I working at before? Excuse me. All right. So this is all the authentication. And I'm looking for built-in widgets, changing passwords. So you can kind of see what we're going to be what methods we're going to be working with here in a second. Because I want this to be like a password input, so you can't see what you're typing in. Permission. Reset form. See, these are already built in forms. There we go. Django form
Form
password.
password input.
How to create. Oh, yep. So it looks like it's password input. Looking at answers. So yeah, it is password input. Thank you. So there's a widget, password input, and that inherits from the forms, the Django forms, password input. So I've got my username, which is a char field. I got my password, which is a char field, but the widget, it's going to be a password input field. So over here, I already imported in my views, I already imported the login user form from my forms. And now I've got my login user form right here. Next, I'll go ahead and actually create my login. And with this, I can probably, I mean, I could reuse my sign up form, but let's just keep things different, separate. So I'm going to do login.html, and I'm going to copy over my sign up form. Everything's the same, except it's going to say login, login, login. But I could really like use like auth form. And the only thing I can really have to change on this is the type of form it is, whether it's a login or sign up form. And I might go ahead and actually consolidate that. But right now, let's just keep things simple. All right, so in our views, we've got the login user form. It's going to render the login HTML template, which is right here. And so let's go ahead and see. So if we go to auth login, click enter, there we go. We have our login and password. So if I type in like Tom2 or Tom, I can type in a password and there we go. All right. But once I type in my password and say like, click login, it's going to be a post request. So then it comes down to this post request. So just like we do up here, but it's going to have a little more, several more steps. We're going to have to take in the form, login user form. We pass in the request dot post. We say, hey, if the form dot is valid, now Django form so the form instance has an is valid method, just like we have here, which runs validation routines for all its fields. When this method is called, if all fields contain valid data, it will return true. Place the form's data in a it's cleaned attribute. So it actually has like an attribute form dot is or clean data attribute. So what we're going to want to do is extract the data from the form and then pass that form and try to authenticate that user. So if the form is valid, we're going to extract the username from the form.cleaned data attribute. Let's actually just print the form first. See what we're working with. All right, what do we got here? Oh. All right. So if I click login, I get an error. Login didn't return an HTTP response. But here you can see this is the form we're working with. But if we do form.cleaned data, like so, and go back, let's do a refresh. log in, we still get an error. Where'd it go? And here we're printing the clean data. And notice right here, we have an object with that username and password attributes attached to that form, that clean data. And again, that if the form is valid, it adds the form fields, username and password to the clean data attribute, and it pre-fills those with the values that we filled out in the form. What questions do you have about that?
Is that passwords in plain text?
Yes. Yep. So if you, anytime you type in a password before it's actually sent across the HTTP request, it's going to be in plain text. But once it gets to the back end, that's when it gets, or when it goes through HTTP, hopefully it's going through HTTPS where everything's encrypted and people can't see the password. So inside of, when you like open up the console and you type in passwords and stuff in forms and click the network request, you'll be able to see the passwords in the network request. But once it's actually sending through the wire, through the connection, it'll be encrypted and hopefully people won't be able to get it. So yeah. But then once it gets back to the back end, the server, it gets salted, it gets encrypted or hashed and then salted and then stored. All right. So what we're going to want to do is extract the username and password, ABC 123, easy password to remember. So we're going to grab the username and password and assign them to variables. And now we're going to send this to the back end, or I guess we're going to actually try to authenticate this user through Django's built-in authentication system. So Django authentication methods, Django docs. So I'm going to using the authentication system. Let's see, we got creating users, you can set passwords, groups. I don't know if we want to do that. Proxy model, I don't know what that is. So right here. So how to log a user in. If you have an unauthenticated user and you want to attach a current session, this is done with a login function. So we're going to need this login function. But first, we're going to both authenticate the user and simultaneously log in the user. So we've got this method called authenticate that takes in the request. So let's just I'm just going to copy this over like so. Paste that there. Make sure everything's indented. All right. So here we've got if user is not done, or I'm going to see, do we have like a valid user? No. Oh, hold on. So if user is not none, there you go. So now we're going to have to import. How do I do that? Where'd it go? Where did that go? Blog post. Oh, here we go. So I'm gonna have to import that at the top. So I get those auth methods, the login and authenticate method. I'm gonna call this valid user. Valid user. So if valid user is not none, so I guess, so if the valid user is true, I want to log in the valid user. And then what does it say? I need to redirect to a success page. I could create a success page if I wanted to. Where's login user? Should we create like a success page or should we just navigate? Let's actually just return redirect to the all posts. Like so. Questions? So where'd that authenticate? So the authenticate method is to verify a set of credentials like keyword arguments, username and password. So here it is. See, this one doesn't have the request on it. I'm going to take that request off. I don't know why I need it on there. So here we go. Checks them against the authentication backend. So this authenticate method authenticates the user against those attributes and then returns a user object. So let's actually, I'm going to print the valid user. A valid user. All right. So if everything goes what, right? If I go back, if I refresh and go Tom, ABC, ABC, 1, 2, 3, like so. I'm going to close that out. Awesome. So if I look down here, all right, I'm still printing that, aren't I? Wait, no, I'm not. So you can see right here, the valid user is Tom, and it's a user object. It's not just a string called Tom. It's not just a username. It's a user object. And now you can see here, all posts say Tom on it. All right. What questions do you have about, and if I refresh, Tom is still there because it's a current session. There's cookies attached to that. There's a token attached to this user, this session. So that's how it knows that this user is logged in. All right. What questions do you have about that? I should be able to do else and then say like return create. You should have error handling just in case this didn't have it redirect to so like if user else login user, something like that. So if I were to log out, let's go ahead and build out the log out page because that is actually relatively simple. So if I go to log out user, so /logout, I can just say, where is it? So here, so if we have a login method, we should be able to have a log out method. So log out view, log out request, log out request, then return, redirect, reverse. Let's go to login user named route. So I need to import the log out. So I'm able to log out a user, no issues there. Now, if I wanted to log out a user, I should be able to go to auth, log out, click enter. Now it takes me to the login page. If I go to blog, I'm an anonymous user again. All right. So that's how we just did building the authentication from scratch. Built in a sign up page, a login page, and a logout page. So just quick recap for the login user. We built out this login user form that inherits from the base form class. So just the standard form class. We told this form what fields we want. So we want the username. We want it to be a char field that has a max length of 100. We also want a password field that it's also a char field, but it has a widget, which is the password input widget. So it's got so it hides whatever the user's inputting. So we pass that post into the login user form. We check if that form is valid. We extract the username and password from the clean data object that's attached to the form. Because when the form is valid, when that is true, and it creates this clean data attribute and or object on the form, and it adds the username and password values to it. So we extracted those values. We used the built-in authenticate method. We passed in the username and password that authenticated the user. So if that user is validated. So if a user object is returned, we use the built-in login method, passes in the request and that user object. So we actually have a logged in user now, and it stores that token in the session. And then we redirect to this all post method. Else, it just redirects to the login user page again. So that's authentication. We're able to sign up a user, log in a user, and log out a user. But now let's talk a little bit about authorization. So let's go back to the blog page. So inside of the views, we have, and let's talk about the URLs. We have this protected route. So in here, we can say like, and if we have access to inside of our template or our post list, we have access to this user now. So if a user isn't logged in, they're an anonymous user. Otherwise, a user object is passed in. So here, and that user object is passed around everywhere. So we can say, hey, if the request dot user, and this user is always added to the request. So it's either an anonymous user or a logged in user or an authenticated user object that has a built-in attribute called is authenticated. I spelled out. So if a user is authenticated, I'm just going to print a user. We want to, what do we want to display? Let's do, we can like post, or let's actually just return, render the request, blog, secret route.html, and pass an empty. So we're not actually passing any data. Return, redirect, reverse, login user. Oh. So I'm gonna come over here, the post list. I'm gonna create another, what was it? Secret. Route. H1. This is a secret route. Only authenticated users have access to. Has access to this. So I just created a secret route template. Looks like I'm gonna have to import the redirect and reverse from there. All right. So I've got an anonymous user. If I go to that protected route as an anonymous user, oh, what happened? Did I not? Blog / protected 404 protected route. Oh, did I add that? There we go. So when I went to, let's go. So now if you look, I went to that protected route. So blog / protected, it came into here. It printed the request.user, and it's an anonymous user. So the user is authenticated as false. And I can also do that here. Is authenticated. That is all like so. If I did that again, if I go to blog / protected, oh, not bold. It redirected me to the login page, but you can see it's an anonymous user, is authenticated as false. So this is false. So it came here, it redirected me to the login user page. Now, if I do Tom, and logged in, I'm logged in now, I'm authenticated. And now if I go to that protected site, says this is a secret route, only authenticated users have access to. Tom has access to this. And you can also do that is authenticated within the routes, like here, or like the post list. So I can say like, if user.is authenticated, and if, or maybe the user isn't authenticated, I can post a href login or create user or user sign up, which just takes me to an href. URL sign up user. So if the user isn't authenticated, it's going to show me this sign up page. So if I can go to blog, what happened? If user could not parse. Why didn't that work? Oh, lovely. Just user dot is authenticated Django template. Why isn't that working? Do I really need the request? Should say that. Did I spell it wrong? No. All right, that's weird. If not, I don't know if that works. Oh, okay. So if the user is not authenticated, so I've got users authenticated, like then I can do like else. If the user is authenticated, so now, so I've got a user that's authenticated. I can log out the user. And now I can go to blog. Then I can sign up the user. Or instead of sign up, I can log in. Sign up or log in. So this is how we can actually start interacting with a logged in user and having this logged in user have access to certain items. What questions do you have about building this authentication system from scratch? Nobody has any questions? Everyone got everything?
It's a lot to unpack.
Yep. Again, we're continuing to build on and add to what we kind of already know. But just know that this is building the authentication, not system from scratch, but just building out the authentication routes and the methods to do so kind of from scratch. Yeah. All right. With that, here is kind of like what a link to the docs. But your challenge tonight is to essentially do what I just did. Create project in 2 apps. The first app can be whatever you like. So you can even, what you can do is even take like an existing project that you did, like post and comments or event or any of the full stack Django apps that you already built, and add a second app to it, like a user auth app to it, and add sign up, log in, log out, and modify your templates in your first app to allow to handle users. So authenticate should contain your main user model. You can either use a user profile, a one-to-one pattern, or customize the user model, or you can just use the old user model. You should have at least 2 routes for your second app. That's that blog and your protected route or something. At least one of them should be protected. And if you really want to be ambitious, you can write tests. All right. So it is 7:15 right now. Let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break. I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. Devin is 7:30. Okay. Oh, actually.